Hi, we're here today with Derek Schneider on Kingdom Live. Derek is our featured guest today, but not only today, Derek is going to be a regular on Kingdom Live, almost a Kingdom Live correspondent.
That's right.
So who is Derek Schneider?
Who is Derek Schneider?
Yeah, and what's unique about your call to ministry?
Well, I think what's unique about my call is that I grew up in the church. You know, I'm fourth generation pastor's kid, saved when I was 6 years old, and around the teenage years, backslid, as many young people do. But I went into the music industry. I was actually in hip hop music, believe it or not, on radio, putting out records, doing well, looked like a promising career. And then the Lord interrupted my plans. And it was very unique how it happened in that I was about to sign a recording contract. And the lawyers happened to not get the contract to me in time to sign it before I went on just a vacation. I had intended for this vacation to be a holiday. And it turned out to be much more as the Lord walked into the room one night and called me into ministry. It's as graphic as that, and told me not to sign the recording contract. And so I left music altogether and began preaching. But I think what was unique was everything came out of the presence of God, because that experience I had in the room that night was so transformational. I wasn't looking for ministry after that. I was looking for Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Every day I would go into the room and close the door and spend time with God, and out of that relationship, out of that time spent in his presence, is where ministry flowed, and it became a very unique ministry.
Yes, and that ministry today, or at least part of it, is History Makers Academy.
Yeah.
What is History Makers Academy?
History Makers Academy was really born out of a place of frustration where I had been leading revival meetings for close to 8 years at that time. And God removed his glory from these services, and it became about where do we go from here? We've had incredible meetings, incredible services, but people are not getting saved. It's a longer story. I talk about it in my book, Beyond the Four Walls. But literally, God gave us a gift in the form of these intensive, specially choreographed trainings that train and equip people who are comfortable inside the church and gets them active outside the church. So in that way, it's a very unique training system.
Okay, and what are some of the amazing results? I've seen them, but the amazing results of the History Makers Academy around the world.
Oh yeah, it's been just incredible. In fact, the first 2 years, I always say this, the first 2 years of us holding trainings in our church, we saw more results, more fruit than 10 years of ministry combined. And that's the truth. In the next number of years, we were able to reach close to 300,000 people at different nations. We've established different academies. We've released leaders who are really, walking in transformation. They're catalysts of transformation in their countries. We have had impact on government, business, science. Our graduates have impacted really everywhere they place their feet.
Yes, and you've been asked to speak to parliaments in various places.
Yeah, that has been incredible, because I used to think I didn't have much to say. But then when you discover the principles of the kingdom of God, you see that the kingdom of God is really God's total answer to man's total needs. So governments have whipped open their doors to us, because they say, you don't come in and do crusades per se, as good as those are. You come in and train our people in our country on the ground how to rebuild and better our society. So no government has a problem with that, and we do it virtually free, so to speak. They're not paying us. And so we've seen extraordinary open doors because we're a solution-oriented ministry.
Now, what do you think is happening with the church today? Where do you see it going?
That's
What
a
is
great
changing?
question. Great question. The church today is in one of the greatest shifts or greatest reformations since the book of Acts, Johnny. I mean, right now you have, and very few people notice it because you typically don't notice you're making history while you're in it. But in our generation, we are watching the church shift from egocentric, pulpit driven only, in house, come in, get saved, and it's the waiting room for heaven. What's happening now is God is actually preparing people, equipping them through various training and equipping modules that are springing up all over the world to be active out there beyond the four walls. People are going out and bringing the stuff of God, as I like to say, into every sphere of society. The only thing that I think that we can be aware of for sure is Jesus is coming back soon.
Mm-hmm.
And he is preparing people to get the harvest before his return.
And what do you think the difference is between the church and the kingdom?
That's another great question. For time's sake, I could say it this way. Uh, the lampstand, like a candle,
Mm-hmm.
the candlestick exists to serve and platform the candle, the fire, not the other way around. The church is like the candlestick. The church is meant to be a platform for a greater light. The church is not the light, but the church has the kingdom. And the church is really to be a platform to reveal the kingdom of God to the world.
Mm-hmm. And so the church is part of the kingdom, but the church is not the kingdom.
Well, no, the church is not the kingdom. We are the carriers of the kingdom. And the kingdom of God really supersedes the church in that the kingdom doesn't exist to reveal the church. The church exists to reveal the kingdom.
Okay, interesting. I think that's true. Now, what are some of the secrets behind your success?
Well, one of the things I'm asked about most, which surprises me, is people either ask me about system building or my personal prayer retreats. And it's usually about my personal prayer retreats. Every month, I'll take 3 days of total seclusion, no cell phones, no multimedia, no food.
No wonder I can't get a hold of you when I call.
Those 3 days you won't. You'll have to go through God. And I'll go away on these retreats, locked up in a room, and I'll spend time only with God. I'll catch up on some reading. I'll rest. And I'll have encounters with the Lord and receive ideas and wisdom and refreshment. And so when I come out from those retreats, having been with the Lord, it's like having answers. It's like seeing life now through his eyes and being able to make decisions, not just for our ministry, but decisions that are impactful for everywhere we go and minister. And there's a fresh grace on you when you spend time with Jesus. When you go and put your hand to something, your ministry is effective, and we see real results. I think anybody who wants to carry the kingdom of God has to spend time with the King.
I think that's fantastic. It's true. I'd also like to tell you about a gentleman who came here yesterday because he had just been the previous weekend to a History Makers Academy.
Yes, yes.
And he was so excited, and he said he had been waiting for this. He had been waiting for it his whole life.
We hear
And-
that all the time, Johnny.
And he said that he wanted to buy every book you had. He wanted this, he wanted that, he wanted the other thing, and he was so excited. And he bought another couple books. He went home, and the next day he calls me up. He's on fire, he's excited. And that's what happens with people who go through History Makers training.
Yeah, definitely.
They get excited about the kingdom of God.
Well, they get more than excited because, in any church service, you can get excited. And at a conference, you generally get excited and inspired. The reason why these people's excitement is a little different is because they leave having been stretched to a point of no return. They are changed, that is for sure. Dr. Carolyn Leaf said so well that it takes approximately 3 days to change a mindset. when the mind has changed, when the mindset is different, their whole perspective changes. But on top of that, they leave with the tools to actually get results. That's huge what I said there, because oftentimes we leave inspired and having been preached to, but we don't have the tools to go out and get traction in our lives, our churches, our ministries. So when people leave history makers, we've handed them this, and this, and they have a whole tool belt, and they can predict, if I do this, I will get this result. There is no excitement in the church today like knowing I can finally get results on the things I've been hearing about.
Well, that's exactly how this gentleman felt.
Yeah, I
He,
believe it.
he just, he knew that this would work. He knew he had the tools and he wanted to work in the kingdom.
Yeah, I believe it.
I want to thank you for being here with
Oh,
us
Johnny,
today.
it's always a pleasure.
And I want to implore you to tune in to Kingdom Live so that you can frequently see History Maker highlights with Derek Schneider. You'll be so glad that you did, and you'll learn about the kingdom.